And tonight on the Daily Wrap, China, currently the chief suspect in that massive hack of U.S. government computers, now being treated as a national security matter. But how did this happen? The details coming up. Hillary Clinton says Republicans are trying to keep millions of Americans from voting. But now GOP candidates, they're firing back, and it ain't pretty. And Disney goes on a firing spree of hundreds of employees to make room for immigrant workers. We have an in-depth debate coming up. We discuss all of that, plus potluck, yay or nay. Great show tonight. This is the Daily Wrap live from New York City. And welcome, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host. He is a Sirius XM radio host and senior political commentator and columnist for Forbes. You are Rick Unger.
I am.
How's it going?
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's all good.
To his right, Philly attorney and America's pundit, Heather Hansen, is back looking good in burgundy. I'm going to guess that color.
Look at you with the colors.
And finally, Forbes.com contributor. He is Bill Tucker. How are you, Bill?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Contributor.
I got to be honest, it was such a short introduction. I expected more. And I just, is that it? There is more, trust me. All right, it's time for the Daily Download. All right, well, that massive cyber attack by suspected Chinese hackers is now being investigated as a national security matter. The hackers broke into U.S. government computers, possibly compromising the personal data of 4 million current and former federal employees. We're even seeing reports tonight that number could be higher. While the investigation is focused on China, it's unclear whether the Chinese government or private citizens acting independently were responsible. Today, the White House said the FBI is trying to determine who's to blame.
They are working actively to understand exactly the scope of this particular intrusion, but also to determine who is responsible and to make sure that we can take steps that are necessary to hold the individuals who are responsible for this incident.
Now, the Chinese embassy in Washington, they say that we're jumping to conclusions and, quote, the Chinese are not responsible, and this is counterproductive as far as the blame game is concerned. Revelations of the massive security breach come one day after it was revealed the Obama administration had secretly expanded NSA powers to include snooping on America's internet activity overseas, on websites and so on. The Justice Department says the move is necessary to thwart foreign hackers. So let's bring in national security intelligence expert. He is Josh Katz. Josh was a senior policy advisor for counterterrorism and intelligence and is currently the managing partner at the Enright Group. Josh, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So first question, pretty blunt, pretty simple. Is this an act of war?
We have been involved in a cyber war for years. We just haven't called it that. This is a multi-front cyber war. China is a main actor, but there are other states, nation states, that are other groups that are involved in this. We just need to call it what it is. Yes, we're involved in an ongoing global cyber war.
Hey, Josh, Rick Unger. I suspect that you're absolutely right when you say that, which raises a question to me. We've all been focused on what you do to respond to this kind of an attack, and I think the best response is to do it back to them, but maybe 10% worse. But, the one thing that I think about is it at all possible that what the Chinese did was a response to maybe something that we did to them?
This is, something we're probably going to discuss for a long time to come. But I would say that this is a government of China sponsored event. The government of China won't allow people to walk down the street if they don't want them to. So we shouldn't make any mistake that this was a government of China event. That this is going to happen again. It has happened. And I think that we are not doing nearly enough. Not doing nearly enough first to defend ourselves, but then not doing enough to go on the offensive here.
I'll continue then. So how do we know that, Josh? I know that you've been in positions to know what we do. My suspicion is that it's pretty tough to defend ourselves because as soon as we improve our technology, the hackers have a way of getting out in front of you in no time. So isn't it a matter of trying to teach those who would do this, who would attack us in this way, a lesson by doing it back to them? And if that is the right answer, do you really know that we're not doing it already?
We're doing it in a limited capacity. We're not doing it against the Chinese like we should be, and I think it's because of fear. The administration, and we've seen this time and time again, Rick. The administration is very fearful of the response from China, and they have used a lot of words like the president has said that he and the Chinese premier have seen eye to eye. Yeah, they see eye to eye, especially as the Chinese are reaching their hands into our cookie jar. That's going and it's going to continue. This is a major issue.
Josh, it's Heather Hansen here. What do you think about the NSA surveillance of the interactions, the web interactions that we heard about today? Do you think that that is really helpful in preventing this type of thing? And if it is, then how did this get by it?
It's not helpful because I think, as Rick alluded to, when we go on the offensive here, one of the major defenses in the cyber world is to go on the offensive. To keep when you keep the hackers guessing and you keep them sort of on their toes. That's as good of a defense as we can do. But also, we have to understand here the Chinese have lots and lots of manpower behind them, and this is. We cannot confront that based on our limited resources now. Does that mean that surveillance is the key? Having done things with surveillance before, it's not, and I think in this case it's probably a little bit misplaced. It's really not going to defend us like we need.
Hey Josh, I read a story today that was talking about how, since these are personal computers of federal employees, that it could reveal passwords or sensitive information for even weapon systems. Why would we're not at war with the Chinese. I don't think we're necessarily friendly with them. I can't quite put my finger on exactly what the relationship is, but what exactly are they trying to gain from all of this?
This is a new tool in an age-old craft called espionage. Right? The Chinese here are gathering as much information as they can about our personnel, our weapon systems, looking for vulnerabilities. Passwords, as you described, are key in continuous penetrations of our system. And I think it's important for us to know that the next president of the United States is probably going to be the first president who we can guarantee has had all of their personnel information stolen. So all of their health records, all of their emails. Private servers are not. They are going to be. They have already been targeted. They will continue to be targeted, and the next president will be incredibly vulnerable because of that.
Josh, we'll have to end it there, but thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so panel, let me clarify. Obviously, we're not at war with China, or else it'd be lights out, and no reason to move on.
That doesn't mean we're not in a cyber war.
Right, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah. I wanted to clarify that all of this going on back and forth. I'm just curious again what Josh explained it to me pretty well, but what the Chinese is trying to gain and what's going on here exactly. Like I'm trying to simplify for people at home. Why is this important? I think is the question I'm trying to ask.
Well, clearly they want some insight into our country. It's really worrisome. About a week ago, 14 people were indicted for, Chinese nationals, were indicted for taking exams to get into universities here so that they could get their visas. You've got maternity tourism in California that is, a number of people were indicted for coming here to have children. All of this is extremely worrisome. Now they're collecting data on millions of Americans. It's a real problem, and it goes even further, I think, than espionage.
See, the one thing that we ran out of time, unfortunately, with Josh, but I would have pushed back a little bit. Just because President Obama says, oh, we see eye to eye and we're great buddies and all this, we already know that doesn't stop us from spying on the Chinese. I promise you we're spying on the Chinese.
We spy on the Germans and the Israelis.
Just as they're spying on us. So what I'm very curious about is how far we've gone in terms of launching, attacks on their cyber systems. We may not be doing enough. We may not be doing any. I have no way of knowing. But I do kind of wonder. I have a funny feeling that we aren't sitting around just getting attacked and not firing back.
Couldn't agree more. Bill, last word, 20 seconds.
Well, all of this is why I own shares of computer security companies. This is the reality that we live in. And the reason they're doing it is they want to compromise our systems. They want to know where our weaknesses are. And the more information they can gather, fine. But now they understand our weakness and how to get it.
And we may also know theirs.
Yeah, you got to tell me those stock tips, by the way, because you're right, that's a good investment. Anyway, more Daily Wrap in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host Rick Unker, Heather Hansen, and Bill Tucker. So imagine for a moment getting the sad news from the place where dreams really do come true, that you're fired. But it gets worse. All told, 250 tech employees at Walt Disney World in Florida, that's in Orlando, were told that they were being laid off last October. But here's the punchline. They were then told they're going to have to train their replacements. And just who are those replacements? The New York Times now reporting they were immigrants brought in from India on temporary visas for highly skilled technical workers. One former Disney worker tells the Times, and we quote, "I just couldn't believe they could fly people in to sit at our desks and take our jobs over exactly. It was so humiliating to train somebody else to take over your job. I still can't grasp it," unquote. Disney says the layoffs were part of a reorganization and that the company opened more positions than the ones it eliminated. But the move is raising questions about these temporary visas for skilled foreign workers, as they're not supposed to displace current American workers. But critics say this program is being used to replace American labor with cheaper foreign resources. So, Bill Tucker, is this the exception rather than the rule?
No, this is the rule. Unfortunately, it's been the rule for a very long time, and I did extensive reporting on this over the years as a reporter. And in fact, I went back this afternoon and looked.
To Orlando? Wow.
I went to Orlando. It was really nice. No, I looked up the testimony of a woman named Pat Foulon. She worked for Simmons. In July of 2003, Pat testified that she, Mike Emmons, and a number of other tech workers at Simmons lost their jobs and had to train their replacements, and they told the Senate Judiciary Committee this, and the Senate Judiciary Committee sat there with great indignation and great outrage and did absolutely nothing, and it's still going on. Earlier this year, Southern California, they laid off their tech workers out there, replaced those. The way they do it is they reorg it and say, we're eliminating the tech department, we're bringing in this company who's going to handle our tech situation for it. They do it because the wages are cheaper.
Right.
Heather, I'm a bit unique in that, and my wife and I should say, we've gone to Disney World down in Florida 3 times before we had kids.
Oh yeah, you're a Disney lover.
Well, yeah, seriously, it's
Are
the
you
cleanest
still?
place on earth. Of course. Well, now I have to go.
After this?
Yeah, now I. Oh, well, that's what I was about to bring up. We spent a fortune. Like more than when we went overseas.
Yeah.
It's the most expensive place on earth as well because they know they got you. It's like Yankee Stadium, you're going to pay $10 for the hot dogs. You have no choice. Once you go within those gates, it's over. Now, all of that said, they make a lot of money. I don't think they need to necessarily go to India for cheaper resources.
Well, that's correct, and I think that Bill's point is well said, that this has been going on for a long time, and now to have it in the public light in such an unusual way, to have it be Disney World. But I think that the answer to it may be to boycott, which would mean that you can't go to Disney World anymore. We can't use Fossil watches. Fossil did the same thing. Edison, South California, I don't know how much you can boycott your electric company.
That is so beyond unfair, though, because once my daughter and future son can talk, I'm not going to have any choice. I won't be able to boycott. They're going to make me go regardless.
But, I mean, if Congress isn't going to act, and it seems as though they have been reluctant to do so, although it may well be with this type of publicity they will change, but there has to be some sort of punishment for this type of thing because we've got people who need jobs. There's people who need jobs.
You have no idea how much I'm enjoying this.
You do have a very content
You both
smile on your face.
identify as conservatives, free marketers. It's cheaper.
that's
They're
the
saving
boycott.
money, and all of us. When I talk this way, like you guys. By the way, of course, I agree with you both.
Right.
But when I talk that way, they call me a communist. Listen to you
Oh,
two. Isn't this
Rick,
a company
Rick,
exercising its
I
right
will tell you
to
for-
make more money?
It's not
will
true
tell
they
you
call
for
you a
years-
socialist.
In fact, I will tell you, for years covering this issue, I met with tremendous resistance, and it is really amazing how bipartisan the issue is. As a matter of fact, it's
it?
actually very
Really?
interesting. Yeah, there are a lot of
I noticed that
conservatives now.
Republican-controlled Congress is deeply upset about this.
And Democratic-controlled Congress was as deeply as upset
But
as well.
they're not
They
there.
didn't care.
I-
They were there. You know what? They were there.
I'm
There's
just
not a
going
lick
to
of
let.
difference.
I'm just going to say that I hope that your conservative compatriots out there share your feelings.
I hope
I
they
think
do
a
too.
Because
boycott
they
is the
usually
free
don't.
market. Isn't the boycott the free market
No,
working
the
the
free
way
market
that it
way
should?
is to argue that a company should be able to make as much money as they want, and if they replace people, that's business, man.
And if the consumer doesn't like
good
that
for the
company,
shareholder.
and if the consumer doesn't like what that company's doing, they
Right.
stop going to that company.
But
and
it's
the
good
company
for
Bob,
the
loses money.
actually, it's
shareholder.
good for Bob Iger because he got like a $46 million bonus. Isn't that what it was? No, it's good for him.
It's not good for the shareholders?
I don't know that. Well,
Really?
Disney stock has done very well. That's
It's
true.
not good for the shareholders to make more money?
You know what, Rick?
Perception
Walking
can hurt
into
the
that
company,
little
too.
Stop
sneaky
making
trap.
more money if
no,
people
it's
don't
like
wanna
no.
go.
There is a morality attached to money.
I couldn't agree
I got
more.
a newsflash for you.
You're
There is a
preaching.
morality.
You're preaching to the choir, man. I couldn't agree more. It's just not what I normally hear.
Okay, well, speaking of immigration, 2016 Democratic hopeful Martin O'Malley is trying to outmaneuver Hillary Clinton. He says if elected president, he'd tackle immigration reform in his first 100 days.
I would use my executive authority to be guided by the truth that we should keep families together and not break families up. And I would continue to push for immigration reform through Congress until we get it done.
Now, O'Malley made his remarks earlier this week before the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. The former Maryland governor is touting his 15 years of executive experience as proof he could get things done. Will this help him when he takes on Hillary Clinton, Bill Unger?
Bill Unger.
Rick Unger.
Oh boy, Rick, we've
Friday.
merged our personalities.
That is not going to happen.
Yeah,
That is not gonna
yeah.
happen.
Nothing
More
is
coffee.
going to help Mr. O'Malley when he takes on Hillary Clinton.
You know, I think that's a shame, though. He hasn't flip-flopped on the issue. He's consistently been very pro-immigration.
Yeah, he
he
has.
had in-state tuition for immigrants in his state, whereas she has not been consistent on her views, and it
agree.
really is a shame
I
because he's
agree with you.
consistent in most of the things
But
that
it's
she's
still not
voted.
going to help him. But
Yeah,
you're
well,
right.
I don't know. He did such a fine job managing Baltimore that it might that
know,
might
it's
overcome
really
everything
unfair.
else. The problem I have with the immigration story is just very simple, and Rick and I talked about this once before. We have to know what our policy is, and we seem unwilling to just say, okay, this is what we want to achieve with our immigration policy, and then we move and act from there.
We can agree.
Well, Rick Tucker, that was excellent. Thank you so much. Rick's only been doing the show with me for 4 months and everything. So, coming up, Hillary Clinton calls out 4 GOP governors for what she says is launching a crusade against voting rights. Who did she name? We'll tell you next. You're not allowed to go anywhere. And welcome back to The Wrap. Well, Republicans are firing back at Hillary Clinton, who went after her potential rivals, not all 24 of them, but at least 6, insisting they're on a crusade against voting rights.
Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker cut back early voting and signed legislation that would make it harder for college students to vote. In New Jersey, Governor Chris Christie vetoed legislation to extend early voting. And in Florida, when Jeb Bush was governor, state authorities conducted a deeply flawed purge of voters before the presidential election in 2000.
Now, Mrs. Clinton made those remarks in Houston at the historically black Texas Southern University. Surprisingly enough, she did not take any questions from reporters afterwards. And the clock continues, now over 20,000 minutes since she took her last question. Anyway, former Governor Rick Perry took great exception to her accusations.
The people of the state of Texas is who she's taken on, because that was a law that was passed by the people of the state of Texas. She just went into my home state and dissed every person who supports having an identification to either get on an airplane or to vote. And that's highly popular.
Nice touch with dissed. And in New Hampshire, Chris Christie didn't mince any words either.
Secretary Clinton doesn't know the first thing about voting rights in New Jersey or in the other states that she attacked. And my sense is that she just wants an opportunity to commit greater acts of voter fraud around the country. So, I'm not worried about her opinion.
And Clinton just happens to be calling for universal automatic voter registration for Americans when they turn 18. Boy, you want to talk about this. You could barely let me get through the script.
I mean, you got to know, first of all, everything that Hillary Clinton said there was true. It was. I'm about to give you the facts. Then you go after me.
Okay.
Number one, not only did she properly quote what happened in Wisconsin, it was actually worse. Because what they did in Wisconsin was they passed a law that was overturned, thank goodness, by a court, where you had to go to the DMV to get your card. So what did they do? They immediately closed up the DMV location in the really deep part of the poor section of Milwaukee, and they merged it with one that was 45 miles away, meaning if you happened to be a black person and you did didn't have a card, you couldn't go get your card. So that's number one. Number two, for Rick Scott to sit there and say he's offended is hysterical.
It wasn't Rick Scott.
Perry.
Oh, it was Rick Perry. Yeah, when I heard Florida, I thought Rick
We're
Scott.
merging
You're
names
right.
here on the-
You're right.
Tonight,
You're right.
tonight.
You're right. Rick Perry, I never take whatever he says seriously, but it's really true. Everything that Hillary said there is accurate. Look, I happen to support a national voter ID card. I have no problem with it at all. I think it's a great idea as long as it's free and it's fair and people are given the opportunity to make their case as to their citizenship. What we've seen happening is not about the card. It's about passing laws and trying to get them into effect so quickly that people don't have a chance to do it. It is an attempt to try and rig the election. We all remember the Speaker of the House of Pennsylvania rising on the floor and saying because of the law they had just passed, they had just made sure that Pennsylvania would go for Governor Romney.
All right, Bill. Tell him why he's wrong.
Well, no, it's not why you're wrong. What I don't understand is what this is.
At me.
Well, I did laugh at you, as a matter of fact, because we never agree on anything, but except for tonight. I just don't understand why she's chosen this issue. There are so many things to go after.
Great issue.
Oh, I think it's an idiotic issue.
Now we want voters to come out.
If
But
you
the
want to
voters
get
don't
voters
care.
out, then
The
that's
voters
great.
don't care
But
about
yes.
this issue. The voters along a line say that they agree with having to use, exactly as you said, some sort of photo ID. The thing that cracks me up, and to your point, is that she goes after the Supreme Court for Citizens United campaign finance because she's in the middle of campaigning. She goes about again against the Supreme Court for Voters Act because she's about to be elected.
Lord, she's a
hopefully.
politician.
But
Oh my
it's all
God.
her. No, the American people who she's supposed to be politicking for their votes don't care about these things. They care about the economy. They care about security. You didn't hear a big rise of applause when she said that?
You don't have to. There are certain communities in this country that are very sensitive to people trying to take away their voting rights. And how do we know that? Because we see what happens. Now I am going to go back to Florida where Rick Scott ran the most remarkable campaign to do it. And we saw people in that community line up for 8 to 10 hours to vote. Why? Because they weren't going to let him get away with it. They care.
And that's exactly what she's trying to do.
They care. Right.
Do you think that everybody
She's a politician.
18, you automatically get to vote in the country?
I don't
unless
think
you
it's
opt out?
automatic. I think you have to provide something that shows that you
have to motivate
qualify.
people.
Right.
I don't
but
have
you're
a problem with
automatically
that.
registered is what she's proposing.
Yeah, if you're 18, if you've been issued a Social Security card, as most people are when they're young, and then sure, why not? Why not?
Do you think people should be allowed to vote online?
I actually do, if the right kind of safeguards can be put in. It scares me a little bit because we have to. It's actually online voting that presents the greatest opportunity.
The whole hacking thing.
Give us
Right
a
after
conversation
the
at the
first
start of the
story,
show.
right? Exactly.
No, that's
I
what
mean,
I'm saying.
there's
It's a
too
question
much
of
room for fraud.
safeguards. But we actually kind of do vote online now. It's just connected by going to a booth and punching a thing or
But that
whatever,
connection is
and
important.
it goes in.
America's Got Talent doesn't count. We're talking
Why did
politics.
you say that? Never mind. Everything I said. Never
Okay,
mind.
well, coming up next, a new poll shows new leaders in the GOP pack as support for Hillary is down. Plus, Donald Trump wages a new war. We'll tell you who he's attacking now. That's right after the break. Welcome back to Daily Wrap. Well, 10 Republicans have declared their candidacy for president, but a new poll finds 2 undeclared candidates are leading the crowded field. Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, 12%. Ben Carson is at 11% and apparently emailing Heather on a regular basis. And Rand Paul at 9%. More on that in a moment. And Mr. Ted Cruz, that's Rick's favorite. He is at 8%. And do we have the rest of the 10, everybody, or we just did the top 5? There we go. Rubio, Huckabee, Christie, Perry, and Donald Trump at 10. John Kasich, a bubble team, currently at 11. Didn't have enough room on the graphic. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton remains the clear front runner, but her support is down among Democrats. Hillary Clinton at 57%. Bernie, he's in double digits at 11. Joe Biden, not declared, 8%. And Martin O'Malley at 4%. Lincoln Chafee, not listed, at minus 2.7%, which is mathematically impossible.
I think it's appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any takeaways besides the Chafee number from on these numbers?
Deeply worried about Hillary with only 57%.
But down?
This is really concerning.
Down 6 points among Democrats.
She'll be down more before she wins.
Well, how far down will she go?
Who knows? It
Below
doesn't
50?
matter. I doubt it. Could happen. She has a bad week or a bad primary or somebody does something, but I doubt that she will because she still has. Listen, I got to say it again. The Democrats can't get anybody to run. In the Democratic list there, most of them aren't Democrats.
Well,
They're independents.
one of them's running
They
on the
can't
metric
even
platform.
get Democrats to run.
What do you
Yeah,
think
that's
would
right, on the
happen?
metric platform.
What do you think would happen if some young, charismatic Democrat
A
came
good
forward?
candidate came in, all bets are off.
Name names.
Yes, but I can't think of one.
That's
I
the
can't
problem.
think of one
Nobody
either.
can. That's the problem.
But there's got to be somebody out there.
John
there's
Edwards?
gotta be,
He's still young looking.
No,
I
younger.
don't think I think he'd be lower than Lincoln Chafee.
Yeah, he'd be
at
lower than
minus
Chafee,
2%.
that's true.
That's the thing. I mean, we go through this all the time. You'd be amazed. We go, all right, it's got to be somebody out
But you
there. Who
would
will
think
it be?
that somebody in the Democratic
They're not there.
world
They're just
would
not
start
there.
picking. There's got to
Oh,
be.
there's
a
one,
loss.
Mr. Unger.
Who?
His name is Michael Bloomberg.
It's not happening.
Yeah, he's not going to.
I'd be okay with it, but it's not happening.
Would you,
Listen,
let's go back to that for a second. You'd be okay with it. Would
yeah,
you support
I
a
like Michael
Bloomberg or a Hillary?
Good chance I could support a Bloomberg. I like Mike Bloomberg
Really?
a lot, yeah.
Okay.
But I do want to just say this quickly. You know, I understand that people feel like Barack Obama came out of nowhere, and so that could happen again.
Not true.
He didn't come out of
No,
nowhere.
right.
We
I
all
agree.
knew. I
agree.
had met Barack Obama years before. We all knew what was coming with him.
What do you guys think will happen? Both Jeb Bush and Hillary apparently is having a relaunch of her campaign in
Yeah.
less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Do you think those numbers on either side are going to change
Listen,
dramatically?
I have nothing's happened to change my mind. This election will be Jeb Bush and Hillary
Where is
Clinton.
that relaunch, by the way? Is that on Roosevelt Island?
Yes,
It is.
Where
yes.
she kicked
For
the
her,
kids out
for
of the
her,
park.
yes.
Yeah, you know that's the most. You know that's the most inaccessible, one of the most inaccessible parts of
Yeah.
the country,
And
Yeah.
which
maybe why
only
they
makes sense
wanted it.
considering
Yeah.
the
We
press
were
can't get
talking
there unless
about-
they swim.
you-
The other thing I
Bill,
had to-
quickly.
yeah, the other thing we just had a whole conversation about the need to motivate voters. If
Right.
it is a Hillary Clinton Jeb Bush
That's right.
fight, nobody's going to show
I
up.
agree
at the
with you.
polls.
I absolutely
Nobody.
agree with you. It's going to
Don't
be
worry
who
about
do
that.
you like not as bad as the other one.
Exactly.
Agreed.
No.
Speaking of not liking, perfect transition, Rick. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, even
My
if you didn't
my
mean to do it.
pleasure.
That poll also asked Republican primary voters who they'd never vote for. And you'll never guess who came out on top. Donald Trump with a whopping 22-point lead. Wow. Chris Christie polarizing, sure. 37%. Jeb Bush, all right, the name may be hurting him there. Mike Huckabee makes a dumb comment about every 3 days or so. And then Rand Paul taking on his own party at 20%. That poll makes absolute and total perfect sense. Meanwhile, Fox News contributor Charles Krauthammer poked fun at Mr. Trump, saying the 59% was well-deserved, and that had the Donald firing back on, of course, the Twitter. Let's take a look. One of the worst and most boring political pundits on television is Charles Krauthammer. Wait, is that Rick Speed or is that Trump's? Anyway,
I'm nicer than that.
totally overrated clown. Wow, who speaks without knowing facts. Charles Krauthammer keeps going, pretends to be a smart guy, but if you look at his record, he isn't. A dummy who is on too many Fox shows, an overrated clown. Yikes. Apparently Charles Krauthammer struck a nerve. By the way, Jeb Bush has the distinction of being in the top tier as well as in the other poll where Republicans say they'd never vote for him. How do you explain that, Heather Hansen?
I think that it's the problem with the name. I think that people are intrigued. He also hasn't come out yet, so people are only guessing at really what his policies are to some degree. They haven't met his they haven't met his wife. They haven't seen what his speech is going to be. They haven't come forward. So I think that there's the issue with the name mainly.
Bill? You just had a befuddled look on your face. I had to go to you before
Rick and I
Rick.
are having this weird sort of moment where we're in total synchronicity with each other
Scaring
tonight.
the hell
Like,
out of
we,
me. I
We,
don't
we
know
know
about you.
exactly what Jeb Bush's stance is. We
Not
know-
Jeb. You're talking about Donald Trump.
Well, no, and Donald, we know exactly what Donald
Right.
Trump is all about, and the reason he did it is nobody was talking about him, so he had to attack.
You
Right?
took on Charles Krauthammer earlier this week.
Oh, I did.
Is it a wise move?
Well, it doesn't do me any harm. If I was running for the Republican nomination for president, I might be a little more reluctant. But I got to say, it's moments like this that rekindle my faith in the American public.
Boom.
When 59% of them understand that the Donald is a complete
There has to
P.T.
be
Barnum.
there has to be the inter-party debates because if you give me Trump versus Sanders, I'll pay Mayweather $100
yeah.
money. Anyway, potluck time is next. Heather and I share our favorite stories. Stay right there. And welcome back to a very odd daily wrap. It's potluck time. This is the part of the show where we go around the table, share our favorite stories of the day, and if you are the lady in red, you get to go first.
That would be me.
Hanson.
We have not talked about this a whole lot, but people have been talking about it all week long, and that's the Duggars. And for those who don't know, they had a situation in their family where one of their children inappropriately touched some of their other children and a babysitter, someone outside the family. And that information was kept quiet. They didn't talk about it on they didn't report it to the police right away. They did report it to a family friend who was a policeman, but no police report was written up. Later on, after the statute of limitations had run, they didn't report it. Someone else reported it to the police, and there was an investigation. The results of that investigation were not sealed because the son who had committed the inappropriate acts was not a minor, and so those things don't automatically get sealed. Now it is public knowledge. In Touch, which is a tabloid magazine, has broken the story, and all of the other news channels have followed up. Megyn Kelly had an interview with the family this week, and it has been the talk of the town this week. The Duggars, and tonight there's another interview with the two daughters who were victims, have come forward and really aggressively gone after the police. Once again, we have people going after the police. And to me, this was a family tragedy. I think that it's a horrible story. I don't know what I would have done in their situation. I don't pretend to know what I would have done. What I can say, I don't believe that I would have brought my family onto a reality show knowing that we had this in our history. But more importantly, now that we're at this phase of the horrible story, for them to blame the police for this coming out is just, to me, yet another brick on the wall of hypocrisy that they have built around them. And for anyone to jump on that bandwagon and say, yes, the police should be, I mean, some people are saying that the chief of police should be fired and criminally charged.
For what? What did he do?
Well, it's actually a she.
What did she do?
They're saying because she released this information.
Totally allowed to.
Right, and it was a Freedom of Information Act. And in Arkansas, the Freedom of Information Act laws are extremely liberal. But there has been a call for, and then what's also very interesting is the judge now this week came forward and said, yes, this record should have been expunged. She happens to be have been appointed to a number of different committees by who? Yeah. Governor Huckabee. So it's a very interesting and, forgive the term, but incestuous situation we have going on here. And the fact that, the thing that frustrates me most on the whole story and all of the press that it's getting is the fact that once again the police are being maligned for something that they have not done wrong. No, and for anyone to be calling for them to somehow be punished, to me, is taking this story in a different direction and not learning what should be learned from it.
I'm thinking that you could have used another word than incestuous in that situation.
It's what came out. I couldn't.
I'm not sure we're going to forgive you on that.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
But you hit all the right points of this story. Exactly right.
The show obviously has to go off the air.
It's gone.
You'd think so.
It makes a lot of money.
Still gone.
Well, that's the point.
They won't find a sponsor.
From what I understand,
that's the whole thing, right? Duck Dynasty survived because the sponsors were still there.
Okay.
Exactly. In this case, once the sponsors go away, the money goes away, and TLC loses its cash cow.
And that will be the healthiest thing, I think, for the family.
Absolutely. Are you surprised that this became a blue-red issue? In other words, it suddenly became Republicans support the Duggars, and right?
It's a great question.
You know what? But
it's so unfair.
You know, Rick, I think that the media makes it a red-blue. I have plenty of Republicans who are just sickened, saddened, outraged.
I would say almost everybody.
I don't think it's a blue-red.
It's
deal.
not in real life a blue-red issue,
right.
but everything today seems to become a blue-red issue.
It's true.
And I got to raise. Somebody today raised a question to me that I hadn't thought of, and I thought that's a great question. He said, "If it were your kid, would you have gone to the police?" Yes, you're supposed to. Would you have? I said, no, I probably wouldn't have.
And that's why it's also not a black and white issue.
Right.
I think that this is a family problem that should have been dealt with within the family, and the fact that it got out, it did.
What makes it special is one simple thing. These are people, the boy himself went to work as the executive director of the most judgmental group on the planet. The family is judgmental beyond belief on their TV show and their affiliations. That's what is driving the story.
The other thing that makes it unique is they invited us into their lives.
Yes, and said
they brought us in.
Knowing that happened.
That's very fair.
That's where the problem lies.
Yeah, well, reality TV is showing that there are no normal families out there. You know, and particularly the ones that seek attention, then that's the ones you're really going to keep an eye on.
Nobody wants to watch them.
Something going on here. Okay, it's Friday, slightly lighter note here. So, do you want to fly the sober skies? Well, Scandinavian Airlines says, come aboard. Apparently, what they're going to do is limit the amount of drinks you could have on their flight to 3, and then they cut you off. It's over. So, music videos now like this #1 song from 2014 country will no longer be able to be made because of these kinds of rules. Let's roll it.
I've got empty mini bottles filling both our trays. I'm getting drunk on a plane. Buying drinks for everybody but the pilot. It's a party, got the 737 rocket.
The cheap suit. Anyway, yeah, so that's Drunk on a Plane, tremendous song. And now, you know, because of these rules, this happens in Scandinavia, it's going to come to United before you know it.
Limit, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But 3 is, for one person, is much different for another. I don't know how you come up with that number. Anyway, yay or nay is next. It's happy time, people. It's Friday. It's time for yay or nay. First up, a British tank crushed a civilian car on a public road in Germany Monday after an 18-year-old student driver pulled out in front of a cadre of military vehicles. Is it really happy time? Don't worry, no one was harmed in the crash. We do have pictures, however, because the same cannot be said for the teen's Toyota Prius, which was pretty much crushed by the 62-ton Challenger 2 tank. Is this evidence enough to keep her on a Schwinn for the rest of her life, being a student driver and all, Rick Unger?
I'm just thinking of the phone call coming in, right? Dad?
Yeah.
The good news is I'm okay. The bad news is I was run over by a tank.
Amazing.
And nobody believes that phone call.
Right.
Those Prius don't look that tough, but that's a pretty tough car to put up with that and keep her safe.
That's
I say
true.
stick with the Prius.
Stick with the Prius, and she got her license. This was just a little harmless accident. Is that what we're agreeing
these
to?
things happen.
Okay. Next up, a 90-year young Woodstock, New York resident. His name is Walter Thomas. Completed the top item on his bucket list Sunday when he crashed through a garage door backwards. And you thought you were the only one who had that on your bucket list. So, how did it go? Well, let's take a look.
3.
Well, glad he got that off his chest. The helmets were a nice touch. Yeah. Now, Rick, you only got a couple of weeks. Is this on your bucket list?
No, but he is remarkably easy to please.
Yeah. He looked extremely happy.
He looked very happy.
There's got to be a story there.
By the way, I've done it. But it wasn't on purpose.
Oh, because you had more than 3 drinks on a flight, probably. Yes.
There's got to be a story there. Whatever makes him happy, I guess, at this age.
Mm-hmm. He looks very happy. So that's great. Yes, exactly. It's not on my list, but
wait till he gets the bill for fixing it.
Yeah. Oh, apparently the house is being destroyed. So they said you could use our garage.
I see. Okay.
That was the end of it. Anyway, 52-year-old Buffalo native and self-proclaimed push-up king Jeffrey Warwick successfully broke the world record for push-ups early this morning, completing 46,400 push-ups in 24 hours. How is that possible? I could barely do 20.
Looks like he's cheating.
All right, well, that's not really a push-up. I'm sorry. You got to go all the way down to your chest and come up, or one hand on the back like Heather does, that whole thing.
I clap in between.
That's right.
No
Okay.
one hand in the back.
So the yay or nay question, I did not write this. I want to assure you. Can any of you do a push-up?
Yes.
Okay, I think so, Bill. You look jacked.
You should
That
do
would be
10.
great.
Now, isn't there a thing
Drop
right now
and give
doing
me
10
10.
for our troops? I saw Matt Lauer do it.
That's
I saw Andy Cohen do it. I think you guys should do 10 for
Okay,
our troops.
we'll do that right
And
after
by the
the
way,
show.
he did it. He
Off
did
camera.
it in groups of 50. He didn't go continuously.
Oh,
Okay.
that guy?
and those were really not very good push-ups.
No, that can't count.
Weird.
That can't count. Yep, couldn't agree more.
We're
There's
nailed
no mind
whether
Guinness.
those were really
We say no.
push-ups.
Listen to this. He did
I know, right?
46,000 of those. That's no good.
And finally tonight, relatives attending a high school graduation in Mississippi last month were arrested for cheering and now face $500 fines and a 6-month jail sentence for disturbing the peace. We're being serious. You heard me correctly. Arrested for cheering. Apparently the district superintendent told attendees not to cheer until the end. So when their kid got up, they cheered. And boy, apparently the superintendent was very serious. The best part is the girl they were cheering for didn't even hear them. Is this superintendent going a bit too far, yay or nay, Rick Unger?
It's even worse. I actually read the story. First of all, they were supposed to be thrown out if they cheered. They were warned. They threw them out when they cheered. They didn't care. They wanted to cheer for their kid who graduated. Weeks later, the police showed up at their door and arrested them
It's a weird story.
for this.
It's a
It's
sick
sick.
individual.
It's disgusting. And gee, go figure. It only seemed to happen to black people down there in Mississippi.
Oh, don't make it a racial.
No, it's
No, it's
racial.
it's being made a racial thing. I don't think it is a racial
I don't
thing.
think it's a racial
But you know
thing.
what?
I think it's a superintendent who's like out of control.
But I do have to say, when you read the comments to this story, there are a lot of people who get very upset because they can't hear their name or their relative's name because other people cheering like crazy people. So there's a point to be made about not cheering or waiting until the end. A lot of places tell you to do
It's
that.
like saying
Wait
I
till the
couldn't
end.
hear him play a G chord because everybody in the
So-
audience
Why do
was
you
cheering.
get to cheer and for your person?
They can
and
cheer
don't-
too.
No, I think that it's fine to tell them to hold it and kick them out, but not to arrest
Okay,
them.
Bill, very quickly.
It's fine to tell them not to cheer. It's crazy to arrest them. It's crazy to fine them. It's a superintendent that's gone berserk.
He has. Well, and it's still developing. He's not backing down. So anyway, panel, thank you. We have to head to happy hour. J.D. Hayworth and Newsmax Prime. That's next.